Hey, this is Pete Koch, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yeah, we're here. We're on Broad Street in Santa Monica, Broadway, and it's just awesome here. And it's always great to have you on. It's been a couple of years since we got to hang out together or doing the episodes, so it's good to check out. How I check you out. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Life takes this interesting turns, but it's always good to see you, Pete. Enjoy your show in Santa Monica. This is kind of my hangout, so it's good to meet here.
Yeah,
Um, got It's been kind of an up and down year for me, health wise and career wise, but days like today that make everything that seem okay to me as far as I'm concerned.
I guess let's just start with the health things. I know you had the hip transplant and a
Yeah,
replacement, and I know it didn't go exactly according to plan. And look, I'm in the age. I've got bad hips. My
yeah,
buddy Tom had one done the same week you had one done. He's still limping around, but he's okay. That
yeah.
hasn't gone that way for you though.
Right. It's interesting. I guess when I was younger and playing in the NFL, I underwent like most guys who play in the NFL. I had some injuries and some surgeries, and that kept me together. And then fast forward 35 years, and I'm 60. So the orthopedic surgeries that I've had recently, and I'm looking forward to a couple more, are just to preserve what I've got now. And I think, and as a personal trainer and a strength coach, I think people, I advise people to think in the terms of, as you're in your 50s and 60s, think about what you want to be doing when you're 85.
Mm.
It's real tough to be doing a lot of good physically once you get sort of towards 90. And I talk to my doctor friends about this stuff all the time, but I'm 60. I'm thinking about what I want to be and how active I want to be in my 80s. And to do that, to do what I want to do, which is, I'll tell you what I want to be doing. I want to be lifting weights. I want to be doing resistance training in all of its forms. So that's lifting weights, that's using machines, that's body weight exercises, push-ups, pull-ups. And I want to be doing all of that. And then I want to at least be able to play at least one sport recreationally. In my case, golf is something I've played my whole life, but whether that is soccer or tennis or whatever, or it could be a softball league. There's certain sports that are obviously better for us as we age. And I want to be able to do that. So I've got that set in my mind. And I need my cardiovascular activity, my strength training, because I want to make sure I don't run into any problems with muscle wasting, sarcopenia, bone wasting, osteoporosis. That's no way to age. So we need and now I need to take care of the joints of my body. So I had my hip replaced, and I'm having my rotator cuff shoulder surgery in December, and I'm doing that not I'm doing it for today, but I'm also doing it for 25 years out.
I'm trying to fix my camera here on the fly because this one's trying to autofocus. So I want to ask you another question. You're talking about like what you want to do in lifting weights. I just had one of my many doctors and nurses said, "Hey, I want you to lift more weights," which is great for me. I like to lift weights, but I don't know if she knows like my full body condition. Where like swimming, I can do.
Right.
I can go swim for an hour and a half, no problem. What are your thoughts on that? Like how hard when you've got damaged joints, right? And you're trying to manage it. I want to be able to walk around when I'm 80. I don't want to go out and start doing Romanian deadlifts and find out that
Right.
I'm destroying my hamstrings or something,
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's no doubt that there is an intersection with a lot of folks that they have some exposure or maybe no exposure to resistance training, and then they get to, and I'm talking about 50 years and older, where they start to hopefully understand that they, without resistance training, putting your muscles under mechanical tension in all of its forms. Again, strength training, it could be using the machines. I see Arnold Schwarzenegger at my gym all the time, and I believe he's 75. And I can tell you that he looks fantastic for 75. It can also tell you that I've never seen him pick up a weight. What I do see him do is move around from machine to a chest press machine to a back strengthening machine. And he has clearly made a decision. And I know Arnold a little bit, but I've observed this for several years now, and he's absolutely made a decision that that's how he's going to proceed with his resistance training. And I certainly support it. He's arguably the greatest bodybuilder of all time. He continues to look great at his age, and probably, and I'm not being critical of him, but the only, one of the things I don't see him doing is really any stretching or mobility work. So I would add that to, if I were coaching someone, I do coach people, I'd like to see them embracing a comprehensive approach to their physical fitness, and the centerpiece of that being strength training, because the other stuff is really not very meaningful if you no longer have any strength. So the strength training and then the mobility work and stretching your muscles is they're similar, but just a little bit different too. But the ability to move with grace in a fluid fashion, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Can I replace my weightlifting prescription with just swimming and maybe adding like a higher intensity? Because I do a lot of slow, steady.
That's a really good question. And, and I also look at the data about, preservation of skeletal muscle. That's what's really important. And I would say, I don't think you can. And but swimming is it's its own creature. It's really the only form of exercise we do, without being on a surface, right? On a hard surface. So we're in a different environment. And the question is, so here's the key. Here's what makes resistance training go. It's mechanical tension. It's on our skeletal muscles. So think of it this way. I think it's useful. All of us human beings have 206 bones, 646 skeletal muscles, roughly 180 joints. The muscles pull the bones around the joints, and all that is set into action by the central nervous system. That's your brain and your spinal cord, sending a signal out to the muscles through the nerves. And when you place your muscles under mechanical tension, all of that is really put under a certain level of stress, which elicits a response, a hormonal response, a cascade response of all kinds of things that will allow for your muscles to improve, perhaps grow if done correctly, especially when you're younger. But once we get past age 40, we start to get into such a deficit or hormonal deficit where we're losing the amount, men and women, of testosterone that we have. And testosterone is the key hormone for building muscles. So with less testosterone, less octane in the fuel, even if we stay at and try to keep up with the strength training, it's going to be very, very challenging to even maintain it. And you have no chance of maintaining skeletal muscle unless you're doing strength training. So how would swimming fit in there? Is there enough mechanical tension placed under the muscles? I'm not sure, but that would be an interesting study. But what we can do in the meantime is find out how much muscle as a percentage of our body weight we're carrying around. And that would be there's many different ways that we can find out what our body fat, and the sort of the flip side of the coin of our body fat percentage would be our lean mass percentage. And there's many different devices that we can use. The most accurate probably would be a DEXA scan that's available to anybody. You don't need a prescription. It usually costs about $100 at an imaging center. And it's a device that just simply scans your body with just a little bit of radiation. And it will give an exacting figure of how much muscle versus how much adipose fat tissue.
Right.
And it even accounts for the weight of your bones, etc. And it also measures the density of your bones, which is very important too. my doctor, I have an internal medicine doctor that I met when I played for the Los Angeles Raiders, and he has a DEXA scan in his office, and he has all of his patients use it so we can get, if they're new, they can get a baseline of how much muscle versus fat weight they're carrying and the location of that muscle in two broad categories. We've got visceral fat and subcutaneous fat. The subcutaneous fat is stored sort of between the muscle layer and the skin layer, and the visceral fat is stored within our internal organs. It's in and around our heart, intestines, pancreas, and that cancer, that viscera, right? That visceral fat, that's by far the most dangerous. And you can, with a DEXA scan, you can get an accurate measurement of where you're carrying body fat. And sometimes even thin people have an excess amount of fat stored in the viscera, that visceral fat. And my doctor, Rob Huizinga, will put people on a specific diet or exercise program, because that visceral fat's putting them at a higher risk of various diseases, metabolic diseases, certainly works against people in all sorts of cancers. So it's a more modern and interesting measurement of one's physical condition.
Yeah, thanks for that advice, too. I'm trying to sort this out, right? And then the other thing about sorting out like what I have to do to maintain my fitness level is like hands, right? And like this chicken wing or chicken drumstick here, and keeping this thing healthy and fat. And you have to. It seems like as we get older, we've really got to focus on a lot. I don't know. I mean, this is a different thing,
right?
And then like your hip flexors start to go away, and all these different things that I'd never thought of before. Like I'm just going to do push press or, just deadlifts or whatever it's going to be. And maybe those exercises will do it. But I guess I'll get your thoughts on like how to, especially for ladies, how do you keep your hands strong enough to take that lid off the jar of mayonnaise?
No, boy, you really touched on an interesting and increasingly well-studied topic, and that's the relationship between grip strength and longevity. And believe it or not, I mean, there seems to be a correlation there. And, it sort of begs the question, like, oh, should I be specifically, as I'm aging, middle-aged into old age, should I be specifically training the muscles responsible for how strong my hands are? Those would be in particular, the finger extensors and flexors in the forearm, right? It's basically the forearm muscles that give you grip strength. And there's different ways to measure. You've got many doctors' offices can measure your grip strength with these grip odometers. I forgot the durometers. I forgot the name of it. But also an interesting way to measure your grip strength that I recommend for the folks I work with that go to a gym is, regardless of if you can do a pull-up or not, get yourself up on a pull-up bar and hang and see how long you can hang for. And a very and men and women, it's going to be about the same. No particular advantage or disadvantage either way there. And sort of a baseline of a sort of adequate, at least a baseline adequate measure of grip strength is if you can hold yourself for 1 minute. And there's people out there, very, very fit people that I know that have worked on their grip strength and that can hang on a bar for 3 minutes. That would be probably elite. But it's interesting, right? So if you said there's a couple of confounding ways to look at how long you can grip and maintain your body weight on a pull-up bar, and one is, well, shoot. I mean, obviously, you're saying, well, how much muscular endurance do I have in the flexor muscles in my forearms and hands? Number two is, how is this confounded by how much I weigh? Right. So if you're overweight, then you're going to put an excess stress on your grip. Right. So, most people, and as one of the things that kind of reminds you, for you folks that are overweight, is you won't be able to hang very long, and and so correlating grip strength and how much you weigh becomes a little bit more interesting. I mean, there was a gentleman I worked with a few years back, and his stated goal was to lose 20 pounds. Right there, 20 pounds. Okay. So as it happens, I have a workout vest, a weighted vest that you can load. It has pockets that hold 1 pound increments of 1 pound little sort of briquettes, and it goes from 0 to 30 pounds. And I loaded it to 20 pounds, and I said, I didn't tell him how much it weighed, and I said, and at the beginning of the workout, a strength and cardio workout, I said, just put this on, strap it on. And he put this 20-pound weighted vest on, and we went through the workout, and he goes, man, I've never been so tired. You just making me do push-ups and all these things you made me, skip rope, and all these things you made me do with this vest really made me work so much harder. I said, that's the 20 pounds you're trying to lose.
Right.
Imagine how good you're going to feel without it.
Yeah.
And it just a little bit of an eye-opening way to when you get into those discussions about carrying that extra weight.
I mean, you've said in the past on the show that the best day to work out or start working out was like 20 years ago, and also like hour a day, 28 days a month. Maybe you get a day or two off. Yeah. The rest of the time, if you want to invest in your longevity and your health, you have to do this. So when I'm swimming, if I'm just swimming, right, and when I swim, it's I won't say it's like walking pace, but it's about like walking pace, but I'm moving water, right? And maybe I change my strokes and everything else, but I'm not working, but I'm also not, by design, because I'm trying to take care of my shoulders, I'm doing that. Is that enough? Or does someone have to go out or like walk an hour a day or up hills, that kind of thing? What is the minimum if we're going to work out an hour a day?
Yeah, again, this, you've got me really thinking about, because I don't work with truth be told, I don't really work with any swimmers, and I'm going to dig a little bit into the data that says, one thing I know is that when people are trying to change their morphology, which is to say they just want to improve their physique, look better in a t-shirt, that means for mostly everybody a little bit more muscle, a little bit less fat, or maybe even a lot less fat. And when all things being equal, I've seen studies where they had people do their cardiovascular activity on land, for example, jogging, versus in the water, that the folks that were land-based got a little bit more of a robust response to their cardiovascular system, and it also had a better effect or more positive effect on their skeleton.
Yeah,
I don't know that there's much. There must be some, but part of again, as big a problem as anybody may have, especially as they age, is when their bones get brittle. So to stave off osteoporosis, and we have to get our muscles under mechanical tension. Part of it is simply walking, or so, because we're dealing with gravity on that level. I know gravity plays a role in swimming, but it's a different one, right?
Right.
You're in a horizontal position versus an upright position. So it's good question.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
And just again, using me as an analog here for this thing, I use, probably because of my body and trying to maintain so I can get in the pool every day, I use flippers and I use a snorkel so that I'm not like twisting my neck all the time. And because that rotational stuff, it hems me up and gets me out of the pool, right? And so it's not cheating. I'm still moving the water, but I'm able to use my hips in a way that allows them to be useful every day. And I'm not putting all the load on my shoulders. So I've tried to balance it out, but I don't know that that's the right way. And maybe I need to do some laps with flippers, some laps without. I could put extra resistance, like you could have like as a paddle for your hand to create extra tension. The other thing I do is I just do strokes that aren't strokes at all. Like I'll swim in reverse. So my butt is going forward and I'm doing this way, right? To work my shoulders in a different way. And it's exhausting, because all of my motion is that. And I'm also trying to like keep my body in this unnatural jellyfish-like position And it's all like, and it's hard to breathe out of that position. So I find other ways to stress my body, but again, I don't know. Like, and it's not a typical work. I don't want to do like, nothing wrong with it. I don't want to do Richard Simmons jazzercise in the pool. I want to swim.
Yeah.
But I also, I guess I need to like modify and create intensity that probably isn't there.
You know, that's interesting because the way that I tend to think about exercise generally is quantified in a different way. And what I mean is that I like to have the folks that I work with engage from a cardiovascular. If we're looking at the bucket of cardiovascular exercise,
Right.
I see two categories that are quite different, and I like the folks I coach, including myself, to engage in both. So one is the one we're most all familiar with, and that's steady state cardiovascular activity. And that's just, hey, I'm just going to get out and jog. I'm going to go jog for a mile, or I'm in better shape and I'm going to jog. For my brother, 62 years old, 3 times a week, he goes out and he jogs 4 miles.
Right.
Shuts it down. Jogs 4 miles, takes some, he runs about 8:30 mile or something, right? So 35 minutes, shuts it down. And then he does strength training 2 days a week, which is great. And I've talked to him a lot about that. And that's a very, very important part of what he does. But so go out and take a jog, or go out and take a swim for 30, 45 minutes, whatever. And it could be on a bike, and it doesn't even matter. And you might go to the gym and use a step mill or a fan bike, you know, one of those Airdyne bikes. But the point is that your heart rate is steady. And I ask people to, and I help them calculate. We can the exercise scientists put cardiovascular activity into 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, right? So level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
So 5 being, me and you are sitting here, we're at level. Level 1. It means you're really not elevating. And if I said, let's, me and you, we're going to sprint up this hill,
right,
for a bag of money, and maximum that you can get your heart rate. And you can't do it in a pool, by the way, but you can do it, running up a hill. You can do it on a bike. It's harder, but running is a beast. So running up a hill and maxing out your heart rate where you just have to shut it down is level 5.
Okay.
But you can actually estimate these numbers by doing using a mathematical formula. It's very simple. It's 220 minus your age. And then you fit into these level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by a percentage. Level 5 would be 90 to 100% of your max. So 220 minus my age, 60. 220 minus 60, my maximum heart rate, according to this formula, it's called a Corvonen formula, would be 160. And for about 99% of the population, that math works. If you're 20 years old, 220 minus 20, your maximum heart rate's going to be 200.
Right.
When we were 20, it was 200.
Right.
And that's why when you watch, the NFL and the average age of the guys out there is 25, and you realize their heart rate's going up to 190, 195 on every play. It's wild. And then it recovers very, very quickly. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But I like to see people spending a certain amount of time exercising every week in zone 2, which would be 60. I believe it's 60 to 70% of your one rep of your maximum heart rate.
Right.
So it'd be interesting. Do you ever wear a heart rate monitor while you're swimming?
Sometimes, yeah.
And do you know what where the numbers normally come out to?
It's it depends on what I'm doing, right? But it'll go from like the high 110s, the 120, and then if I'm really pushing it, I get up to my VO2. Like if I do butterfly, like I've got, not even 50 yards, and then I'm like have to shut it down, have to go in recovery mode, right? And so I'll do that, and that's that's me. Butterflies, like I'm leaving the water every other stroke, and so it's a double my hips are driving my thigh. It's a lot, and so it blows me out 30 45 seconds tops. So that's it.
Perfect. This perfectly sets up how I would coach you, or this would be And you absolutely can do it in the water. But for most of the folks I work with, it's easier for them to accomplish this on a bike or treadmill. But I would like folks to spend a certain amount of their time in training in zone 2. So do the math formula, do 20 minus your age, figure out a percentage. You just Google what's zone 2. And it'll pop up. There'll be a calculator. It's very simple to determine. For example, I'll use myself as an example. That's for me to keep my heart rate roughly between 114 and 120. And to keep that for at least 30 minutes, 60 minutes is even better. So I just want to keep it right there. At that level of exertion, you and I can have a conversation. I'm going to be breathing heavy, though. You would be hearing my breath in this microphone. I'd get a little sweat going. Me and you would get a little sweat going, but it's not something that's going to shut us down. And then I'd like to see a couple of times a week somebody engaging in some hard sprints, some high intensity training or HIIT training. You might have heard there's many ways to do it. And I'd like to see you get up to that level 5, level 4, level 5, just for 10, 20 seconds, and then shut it down. For how long? Shut it down for a minute or two and just repeat it. People can get a massive amount of benefit from sprint training or HIIT training in just 10 minutes. So that might be in a swimming pool, a 20-second butterfly sprint, and then just get to the side, come to the side of the pool and let yourself recover for a minute, and then sprint for 20 seconds, recover for a minute. Do that 5 times.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. Yeah. And it's incredibly powerful. And it's training and benefiting your cardiovascular system and a cascade of hormonal responses in 2 very, very different ways. Again, one is steady state cardiovascular training. The other is high intensity training.
That's great. Let's stop talking about working out. Let's. I mean, it's always so interesting because you have so much knowledge and you're able to apply it. And again, like I've got this broken body that I'm trying to haul across my 50s, 60s, and 70s so I can go do things still, right? But like I've got to rebuild an ankle probably, but even that's like, who does it? Do I do it? And then the other one need doing, and then it's just like there's so much stuff to manage. And again, you just went through this, like you rebuilt part of your body, and because there were more injuries there than you knew going in. I don't want to fill in the gaps here if I want you to tell us, but we're in this age where we have to do things like rebuild a shoulder or swap out a part of the aortic heart, complex, there's cleaning out and there's cleaning our, carotid arteries and everything. So when you go into this kind of thing, I don't know, how much diligence did you do? Enough due diligence ahead of the hip surgery? Should you have gotten a second or third opinion? Could anything have prevented the extra complications? Just talk in general about what you went through and then what you might have done differently.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Unfortunately, the hard way. So I went 5 months ago for a total hip replacement. Just hip had worn out. I got 3 opinions, and I decided on a surgeon. I think, truth be told, I think I would have been comfortable with. I felt comfortable with all 3, but one was just for a few logistical reasons. He was closer. It was more convenient. And he came with an excellent reputation, including operating and replacing the hips of personal friends of mine. But unfortunately, when I was sent home with new hip hardware, but also an injury. I didn't know it at the time, but an injury to my thigh on the same side. So at some point, I don't know exactly what happened, but at some point along the way of installing the hip hardware, there's 2 parts. There's a ball and a socket, and there's some kind of carpentry going on there that some muscles and nerves were damaged in my thigh. So that was 5 months ago, and it's been a truth be told, a difficult recovery. I'm actually still seeing some doctors about best practices. It appears at this time that so I have numbness and a reduced function in my thigh, and apparently the good news is that the hip hardware that was installed works. It's just that I came home with a big injury to my thigh, to my muscles and my nerves, and I'm trying to figure out how to manage it. and
Yeah.
it's very challenging. I'm actually seeing another surgeon later on today. So frustrating that it happened to me. It's a surgery that has a very, very high success rate and patient satisfaction rate. It's actually considered one of the more simpler orthopedic surgeries, and I just didn't get the outcome I was hoping for. Uh, I I don't think I did anything wrong.
Yeah.
I think I had a very logical approach to choosing a surgeon in a hospital, but uh, and I think I just want to be clear. I'm fully aware that doctors make mistakes. A mistake was made. What disturbed me was that the mistake wasn't picked up by uh, the doctor later on. He examined me later on. His physician's assistant examined me later on. I had a physical therapist working with me. He didn't pick up on it. And then I left that community when I was still in a lot of pain, and I went back to my internal medicine doctor, my old friend from the Raiders days, and he diagnosed or indicated to me that he thought that I had an injury and that I should go and have advised me. And I went and got an MRI of my thigh, not my hip, my thigh, which showed that I had suffered an injury to my. I went into a hip replacement surgery with a healthy thigh and came out with a damaged one. So that set me on that got me away from my original orthopedic surgeon and set me on a path to find the best practices because this is it's a rare occurrence actually.
Yeah. Does your size, because you're an enormous person, right? And I can imagine taking a hip off of a 5'2" woman is going to require a little less, because it's physical surgery. I mean, if you ever see video of it, you're like, oh my God, like it's almost barbaric to watch it, right? But these guys are pros; they know what they're doing. So, is there any chance that that's part of it, because you just take up so much space and require more force than someone who's small?
Yeah, you ask a good question, because anybody who's listening to this conversation that is thinking about, and it's a lot of people out there that are thinking at some point sooner or later a hip replacement surgery. And so here's two things that I think folks should know, that there's generally two approaches to how the doctor is going to get the hardware into place, and one is an anterior, one's a posterior. So just in medical jargon, anterior is the front, it's the front of the hip, and the posterior is the back side of the hip, almost like the top of your buttocks. And I think that I would recommend that everybody have a discussion with their surgeon whether they think that they should have that would the surgeon perform a posterior or anterior entry into the hip, and why, and just do your homework. I mean, there's so much information available on the internet, on YouTube. I thought I had some education on the surgery going in.
Yeah.
And then I had to re-educate myself on the injury to my thigh, which I'm like I said, I'm still working with doctors to rectify. Now, next up for me is I got a torn rotator cuff in my shoulder. So again, this is another common surgery particularly amongst people older than 50.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare young people have this. I mean, it would take a catastrophic injury, generally speaking, to cause a torn rotator cuff when you're younger than 50. But boy, they're quite common for folks in their 50s and 60s. And so here I am, faced with this. And again, I've done my homework, and there is an enormous variety of shoulder injuries. A lot of times somebody's shoulders hurt and they think they might have a torn rotator cuff, but it could be a bunch of different things. It's a very complex joint, and it's much more complex than the hip joint. The hip joint is a ball and socket. The shoulder joint, it only bends in so many different directions. The shoulder is far more complex. And so I've been doing my homework, and and there's different types of rotator cuff repairs. So without getting down that rabbit hole, I know the type of surgery that I need to give myself the best opportunity to what. That's to place myself now in a position so that I can do the things physically I want to be doing when I'm 85.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, strength training and golf.
Mm.
And you can pick whatever you want. I suggest the centerpiece for whatever you do as you age is resistance training of some type, and then fill in around that. Maybe it's mountain biking, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's tennis. You fill in around that as you see fit. But strength training. So at this point I cannot perform strength training due to the injury to my shoulder. So how do I go about fixing that? And well, in the solution, unfortunately, is surgery. But here we go.
Here we go. Your mic's in an okay spot. Don't worry about it. I got you fixed up for that. So, we are in this age, right? And so you have these long-term, like I got my hip fixed. I got to rehab that. Now I have this thigh injury. I still got the shoulder. Like it's, the next 3 years, you're going to be dealing with this, right? And it is, I know for me, a lot of my problem is like the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, and it just stacks up. And I just, I want to, and at times I just give up. And I'm like, just whatever, And so there's that aspect too. But then there's also an appreciation for, like, we get to do this. This is wonderful. I love talking to you and being here in Santa Monica. And so, like, I have a greater appreciation for something as simple as this, but also my body and taking care of it, looking at 30 years ahead and seeing my girlfriend's parents and how badly they're doing, and everything. It's like, oh my gosh, this all sucks. So it's simultaneously the most wonderful time of my life. My life is so enriched, but it's also, I look ahead and I'm like, it's terrifying,
Pete, you son of a gun. That's why I love talking with you. We've known each other quite some time now.
Yeah.
We've gone down this we've taken our conversation in this direction several times before, and talking about how in both of us suffer from intermittent anxiety and depression. And I'll speak for myself, and I'll say I'm very fortunate that I don't have that sort of acute depression where some people say, like, I just can't get out of bed today. I've never felt like that. But this low grade buzzing, things aren't going my way. How do I get myself motivated to do things to improve my station in my life? And that I've battled that my whole life, sort of have that's coupled with anxiety. And then when you factor in difficult circumstances, and there's no getting around the fact that this is going to be my 9th orthopedic surgery. And I certainly, when I was a young athlete, I hadn't anticipated that it would come to this. I think it just goes to show that I played in the NFL for 6 years, and I don't know that it was because I was so remarkable, but it's just that I had such a passion for it. But 4 years of Division I football plus the 6 years in the NFL is, I guess I thought I might fall apart a little bit more gradually, but it's hit me like a ton of bricks. So and there's no doubt about it in my mind. And I've done a lot of research on this. And by the way, and I'll share this. One of my doctors said to me when I was talking about, and she's not even a surgeon, but one of my doctor friends, she's actually a dermatologist, but she's a wise woman and a woman of medicine, of course. And I was telling her about, I had problems with this hip surgery, and now I've got this shoulder reconstruction, and it's got me down at times. And she said, I want you to know something, that from a medical standpoint, that when you have an injury, you will become depressed. Nobody is immune to that. Nobody gets off scot-free. And some may disguise it better than others, but that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. So, okay, now, and when she told me that, the grace in what she said was just simply saying it and giving me permission to be down in the dumps about it. So God bless her. And I just want other folks to know that too.
Yeah. That's that's again, like we're at this age where we can accept these things because you were a person who imposed their will on other people whose job was to impose their will upon you, and so you're like, well, I can overcome anything because I can defeat these things. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm a combat guy. I'm going to go out and I don't care if you're going to shoot at me. I'm going to do my damn job. Danger, whatever, right? And so we have these things, but as we've aged, that's not our business anymore, right? And so you have to figure out how to like pull different tools out of the tool bag, and you're like, oh yeah, look at this handy tool I have. Like, I have grace. I can use grace, and if I text a friend and they don't respond back right away, or if they respond back in a negative way, I can be like, I'm just going to give them a day or two, a week, a month, whatever. I'm going to come back to them with the same love. I don't know that I would have done that when I was younger, and I think this thing about we all hit this depression point. We were going through this stuff with my girlfriend's family, and it's heavy. And I watch her suffer through it, and I watch her parents suffer through it. Like whatever their problems are, and that's nobody else's business, but these are hard problems. And when you're in that problem, you're that person who's 80 plus years old, and you're not having the kind of quality of life. Everybody's aching, and no one's doing well. It's okay if I can't get out of bed for several days because I just can't bear this weight. So I lay down and I deal with, and I work to get out of that mode, but I don't beat myself up so much anymore. And one of the things I've taught myself is like, I don't have to put the bar at 8 feet and jump over it every day. I take the bar off, put it right on the floor, and I'm just going to walk over it. And when I'm ready, I'll put it at 1 foot, But we're wired because of who we were and our youth to like, I can jump over a mountain, and I'll be damned if you tell me I can't do it. I'm going to keep jumping. Even if I'm jumping into the mountain, I'm just going to keep doing it,
I love that analogy. I'm going to use that.
Please.
About the bar.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that a lot. I mean, that was so visually powerful.
Right.
You described it and used it. I think it's so useful. Good. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you provided a little something. You've given us all so much stuff. And I guess I should say this. You train people. Everybody should be like, I can be trained by the Swede? Yes. I can go online, go to Instagram, and it's at Pete Koch, and I'll put the link right here so you guys can see it. He's all over the place, and you do these fantastic videos about motivation and just being a little bit better every day. And I love these things. And there's hundreds of them now at this point. There's so many of them. You're always out there doing it. You're such an inspiration. And so I want to thank you for doing that for all of us out here in humanity. We need that.
Well, thanks. I know you're referring to about 5 years ago, I thought that I had something I could share on social media that, we all have to make money. So for a living, I train people and I charge them money, but I thought I could also share some things. At the time, I just had read a quote by Einstein who said, aspire not to be a man of wealth, but rather a man of value. And I thought, I've got a head full of physical fitness, a lot of formal education, a lot of experience.
Yeah.
I had world-class strength coaches as an athlete and world-class athletes as friends and mentors, even in my off-season. As an NFL player, my mentor was a world champion power lifter who had written 30 books on strength training, Dr. Fred Hatfield. And I was so blessed to have these people in my life. And then I'm also a very curious person by nature. And I was like, I can share people. So I created something called Making You Better 30 Seconds at a Time. And I just give fitness tips. And over the years, I've created more than 400 of these little snippets, mostly strength training advice, but a little bit of food and maybe a little stretching in here and there. I've gotten a little bit away from that on my social media posting of late because I've been talking more about overcoming adversity when you go in for an orthopedic surgery. And I'm kind of at a fork in the road right now where I'm 3 weeks away from shoulder surgery, which is truly going to eliminate me. It's going to separate me from strength training 100% for at least 2 months. So I'm having a almost beyond the rotator cuff repair. I'm having a surgery called a lower trapezius tendon transfer. A tendon from a cadaver is going to be my shoulder's so messed up that they can't use all the parts that are in it to fix it. So they're using an Achilles tendon from a cadaver and going to rebuild my shoulder. So there's only a few surgeons in the nation that are even doing this surgery. And fortunately, one of them, he's also the doctor for the Angels, the baseball team. And fortunately, he's here in LA, and he thinks he can give me the best chance of reclaiming the ability to perform strength training, which is, again, my goal.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about using my social media, and I post on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I just post the same things, and to maybe act as a guide to take people through the orthopedic surgery. In my case, it's going to be a shoulder, but other people are out there having ankle. Right, you might be looking at that yourself. Dolph Lundgren has been posting about his ankle surgery.
Right.
You might want to go check him out.
I do.
On
That's a great note. Yeah.
So you got ankle, the predictable problems that people have. I had knee surgery 3 years ago, and shoulder. My training partner had a very successful neck surgery 4 years ago. She's a great success story. Andrea Logan Fitness is a great follow. And I just thought I might just take this opportunity to take people through the journey. I won't be able. It's either because every time I post about an injury, it elicits a response from people that is it's almost tangible. It's because what are these surgeries and these injuries having? What do they have in common? It's pain. It's depression.
Yeah.
It's stress and difficulty, and and a lot of folks are looking for what I think folks are looking for, and I relate, is just somebody that they feel like there's somebody out there on their side.
Yeah. That
actually is feeling them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the role that I'm going to adapt in the next few months, and it doesn't have to be specific to anybody out there going through a shoulder surgery, but an injury of any kind. I mean, truth be told, one of my Instagram friends I never met him in person, was a gentleman who lived in West Virginia, and he was a professional, like a blacksmith, and he made custom knives, and he was such a cool guy. He actually sent me a knife, and we had this relationship, this kind of friendship. And then he's in his 50s, and then one day he posted that he had cancer of the large intestine, I think it was, and he never got better, and then he died, and fast, and I was like, so I like to make the distinction. I'm going through a number of orthopedic medical issues. Medical issues, they're all orthopedic. Versus, I think there's, look, I think it's useful to look at our health, and I speak to health from a fitness professional, of course, not a medical professional, but I think it's useful to think in terms of orthopedic and metabolic, and all those other diseases, from type 2 diabetes to cancer to heart disease. That's what's going to kill you. That's what's going to kill all of us.
Right.
Unless you get hit by a truck, that's how it's going to go down. We're not going to die because our knee doesn't work that well. Right. So I'm so blessed that I'm dealing with orthopedic surgery versus my friend who went through a number of bowel surgeries, and it was very, very difficult.
Let's brighten it up a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
No. I love that we're talking about this, because it is an era of our life. Like my buddy John, who was either going to send me or going to send you a video. We started the show together, and he was way too fat and looking down the barrel of a lot of problems. And a lot of us are like that, right? I'm like that. I've got to continue to work on this. And he found a trainer, and he's one of the guys from Ohio, the barbell gym guys, right? Yeah, and so he's in Concord, and he trains champions. He's
Yeah.
since the original guy passed away, he's probably the number one guy in the world for training champions, right? And so he walked up with John, and it clicked for John. And John went from being, on his way to diabetes and everything else to being, I can wear medium shirts, and he's just so stoked. And he carries around the medicine ball, and he's like, I used to have 2 of these on me at all times, And so he's made this amazing comeback. So we're in this point in life where we can do it. Odds are against a lot of us, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it, right? And so we have to go out and talk about these things and understand that, yeah, these struggles are out there. And it's easy to look at like, I love the picture of you, like you're in the middle of like throwing a probably 135 or something above your head. Like you're just like, probably more. I don't want to degrade what you're doing there. But that's like the best of Instagram, the best of us. You're looking like $1 million, you're tan, you're in the sun. But then it's like, hey, by the way, also got to get through these surgeries. And that's so not Instagram to be that open and to be that real. Like I have these, I'll talk for me. I have these moments, long moments. Like I'll walk out. I think I had one day with you where I was just so depressed, but I was able to muddle through the day, and we'd had a great time. We did shows. Might have been the day we did Bryce Fine. But I just felt like this blanket was on my back the whole day. And so we have to be able to talk about these things so we can all go, hey, we're in this together, and let's appreciate these kind of moments. Let's get together with our friends while they're alive. Because John and I were talking, and it's like in 6 months, we're going to lose. I'm 52. I'm going to lose. I know a lot of people. I'm going to lose probably 2 people. And that rate is just going to go and go and go. Nothing we can do about that, but we can have fellowship. We can work out. We can get together and try to lean on each other. That's the positive side. So I want to keep things positive. But if you have anything to say about that, I want to give you a chance because there's a lot in that.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is that you're just reinforcing my instinct to, jump on that path where I'm gonna position myself where I can do in my own humble way the best I can to support people that are going through any sort of sickness across the board, orthopedic, metabolic. Because you all right when you said that I'm gonna be pretty much down because I actually need both shoulders repaired, and I need to put 3-4 months in between. And because of the nature of these surgeries, they're very time consuming.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
There's no way to speed up the healing process. So with my first surgery, the middle of December, I've got 2023 blocked out from any strength training.
Right.
I'm going to have a life. I'm going to try to make the most of that 2023. But and so for the first time in my adult life, I'm going to say like I'm already in my head. I'm trying to figure out every single type of different way I could do cardiovascular activity and lower body stretching and all these things. But because I won't be able to do anything with my upper body for probably about 12 months. So So I think I know there's going to be folks out there that could appreciate some support. When I put it out there, it comes back to me tenfold. I mean, the people that will take a moment or moments to construct a note, an email to me that I don't know. I don't know these people. It just blows my mind. But it just reminds me that there's people paying attention, and most of all, and just something happened during this last 3 years, with COVID, that is it's changed the dynamic of the way people interact.
Right.
And I think it cuts both ways.
Right.
But I think more so people are a little bit more struggling a little bit more with being down in the dumps and looking a little bit more to connect. So I'd like to be a part of that.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's one of the things I love about you. Look, you act and you get great gigs all the time. I love catching your, like I don't keep track, so close to track. I'm like, oh, Pete has a commercial coming out. I love just to like, bam, have it drop in my lap, and I'm like, there he is. It's so exciting. But you also, at least at one point in your life, you were a pretty fair musician. Do you plan at all during this recovery time to maybe grab a trombone or something and get that funkin'?
So just a little history on that. Wow, what a trivia question. I was as well as being captain of the high school football team, I was the president of the senior high school band.
Right.
And I played the trombone. Right. So I haven't picked it up since high school. But, there's a story. I worked with Benicio del Toro for 12 years.
Yeah.
Now. I'm his personal trainer. Saw him this morning. And we just got, we work out in 2-hour blocks of time. So there's lots of conversation. We do cardio, we do strength training, stretching, and a lot of conversation. And I guess it came up because I said, do you, he's been in a couple of movies where he sings. He says, I can't sing, but he can carry a tune. He's good. I said, do you ever play a musical instrument? He says, no. What about you? And I said, well, I played the trombone. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I just can't. No, I said, no, for reals. I was even in the high school jazz band. I was like, yeah, I could play. Ask me anything about a trombone. There's 7 positions, right? In the slide. And he just loved it. And he goes, I don't know how that might ever happen in your acting career, but he goes, someday, somehow, somewhere, you're gonna get a role, and they're gonna look. There'll be do you think you could get your chops back like with your trombone? I go, I guess I could if I had a few weeks.
Yeah.
And he goes, so there'll be a moment where you could interject, because the sight of you playing a trombone with your sort of physicality, and would be such a wonderful gut punch,
Yeah.
And that's the way he thinks in terms of, as a great actor and as an artist. And I thought, oh, that would be fun. Maybe that is something I need to revisit, trombone. So I appreciate that.
Well, one of the guys we had on the show way back when, he's passed away now, but he's like one of the most wonderful horn players ever. His name's Mick Gillette. He was in Tower of Power. He basically led their section, right? Yes, you know him. There's video of this man playing, elite level trumpet, putting it down mid-song and grabbing a trombone and transitioning. What are your thoughts on that?
It blows my mind. First of all, if for those folks out there that do actually know how to read music, they know that music is written in both in the treble clef and a bass clef.
Yeah.
Just music jargon. It's like the notes look the same, but they're different. It's like there's French and German, and that the trombone is played in the bass clef, and the trumpet is played in music is totally different in the treble clef. So these guys like him that not only go through the trouble of learning they're both brass instruments, so they're pretty similar to get a sound out of them. But to read the music, you have to read German and French.
Right.
So that's a real artist.
And in mid-song, the embouchure, is different. So there is and he's not sorting it out. He's doing it. Like there's no I was half a note and moving. He's nailing it. So it's great. Hey, do you want to ask me any questions at all before we wrap up? We're basically at an hour right now.
Oh, no, I just, we talked earlier about your exercise and your health. And I think that's something me and you should just stay in touch with.
Yeah, for sure.
And talk about. And I, and like one of the things I just mentioned, and I'm glad to shoot. I'm going to give you a foam roller.
Okay.
Give you a foam roller.
All right.
And what we were talking about was sometimes muscles get very tight, and massage is probably the highest level of treatment that you could get to some chronically tight muscles. But this next best thing is to get yourself a foam roller and to use it properly. Foam rollers got popular 25 years ago, and at first they were only used by physical therapists. And it was like, this is a piece of equipment. You need to be instructed on how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, quickly they started showing up in gyms, and because they really work. And you don't need much instruction, and you can just Google what's the best foam roller maneuver, for my lats or my pectorals or my trapezius, and a whole bunch of videos come up, and it's a tremendous piece of equipment. So it's inexpensive, and it helps you to take care of yourself in between your workouts.
That's awesome. All right, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you. Let me roll the final credits here. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching the Break It Down show.
With it, because it just gets